Today is June 4th, 2020. This is the Ask Me Anything from the Linchpin private Facebook group. And we did get a bunch of really good questions. So, alright, let me touch my screen here. Okay, there we go. Here we go. Let's see. Going by what has got the most upvotes. Ooh, wow. I checked about 30 minutes ago, checked last night, checked this morning, checked about 30 minutes ago, and I think the questions may still be in the same order, but Ethan's question has got significantly upvoted, so 33, that might be an all-time high. I don't think anyone's going to beat that. Let's see, no, we do have a 25, which is impressive, but we have two 25s. Wow, okay, the 33 is tops. So here we go from Ethan. My life has changed in the context of relationships. My experience is that we make decisions based off of the people we surround ourselves with. What relationship, mentor, or friend has had the biggest impact on your life and how so? Ooh, man, great question. And a massive question, and I will do my best to make it a relatively nicely summarized answer. First of all, I couldn't agree more, 100% agree more. And the funny thing is that applies to all ages, right? It's the same thing that we're telling our two kids. We've got an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old. And we pay particular attention to who they hang around with because you are the sum of your 5 or 6 closest people, and if they make good decisions, you make good decisions, and if they make bad decisions, you make bad decisions, and if they're into bettering themselves, you'll be into bettering themselves. If they're into just poor nutrition, not working out, there's a good chance that you'll backslide. It'll be really tough to be the one person in the group of 5 to 7 people that's always making good decisions at the restaurant, always making time to work out, and everyone else is not doing that. So, yes, I completely agree more, and that's something I've become in tune with more and more as I've gotten older and tried to pay more attention to self-improvement, development, things of that. I've taken a good look around as to who it is that I'm interacting with, surrounding myself with, tried to pay particular attention to what are their values, moral conduct, things of that nature, what are priorities in their life, and are they in line with mine? And am I trying to make them better, and are they trying to make me better through their words and actions? Because that's how a good relationship should be. It shouldn't be one-sided. Everybody should be trying to pick up everyone else, and if everyone's doing that, then you have that rising tide lifts all ships kind of a deal. So, the two people that greatly influenced my life, one's family and one's outside of family. The first one, greatest male role model in my life, period, hands down, is my grandfather. He's no longer with us on my mother's side. Just a phenomenal individual. Just cool, calm, collected, relatively unflappable. His father, so my great-grandfather, came over from Italy, and he was just a very humble guy. He went to World War II, was in the Navy, was on a ship. His ship got hit, sank, they had to abandon ship, and then when he eventually, he survived all that, came back home, and he just opened a barber shop in Rockland, Massachusetts, just a small town, and was forever just the town barber. And because of that, because he was the barber, everybody goes through your barber shop. He was a very social individual, very kind, got along with everybody, was always interested in hearing their stories, and always was an ear for people. And he was just a solid dude. And in all my life with him, there was only one time in our entire relationship that he ever basically yelled at me or raised his voice to me just one time. And I did plenty of knucklehead things, but just one thing pushed him over the edge. And it was one day that I was a teenager, and I basically got a little lippy, a little sassy with my grandmother, his wife. And I don't know, she asked me to do something totally reasonable, and that I should have, was appropriate. But since I was a teenager and I knew everything and had a chip on my shoulder, I just smarted off to her with some sort of response, and he came down on me verbally and in a tone that I had never heard in my entire relationship with him, and I felt 2 inches tall, and I immediately understood that disrespecting his wife was going to be in the unacceptable bucket, and I was never going to do that again in my entire life. That's the only time that he did that, and it stuck with me to this day. He didn't have a heavy hand about everything in the world that had to happen. Something that did come up that I was needed to be spoken to about, or did incorrectly and needed a bit of discipline or guidance, he would always just do that. He would just give me a bit of discipline or a bit of guidance, but in a calm, fair, rational, logical, level-headed perspective. He just didn't always fly off the handle about anything. But I learned that respect goes a very long way. And I've kind of passed that along to my 2 kids as well. I try to tell them, I'm going to give you a wide strike zone on a lot of things. If you don't pick up your toys or put your laundry away, that's annoying, that's frustrating. I'll ask you to do it again. I'll make sure that you do it again. You make a mess after you eat, that's annoying. Wish we could clean it up. We'll talk about it. I'll bring you back over there. I'll make sure that you clean it up. All those things can be handled relatively well. If you disrespect your mother, well, now we're barking up a different tree. And that's in a different bucket of what is and is not acceptable. So, anyway, let's see. Derek, can't read your shirt. Is it a fireman lifting shirt? It is. This is a shirt that I just got in the mail. Very kind. Somebody reached out through Instagram. The New York Fire Department Barbell Club. And so, yeah, very cool. Sent me a shirt, and that was very, very nice of them. So that's the first person who was a big influence in my life. The second one came from my experience in the military in the SEAL team. So my first command, SEAL Team 4, actually where I spent all my time. I don't know why I said first command. We had one of our commanding officers, I won't say his last name. His first name was Pete, and he was just probably hands down the best leader I have ever had the honor and privilege of experiencing and being with my entire life. And I'll give an example of this. And if people aren't familiar with the military, the rank structure might not make sense, but I'll try to say it in a different way that will make sense. I was brand new. Brand new guy. Made it through training, made it through SEAL school, which is BUDS. Went to SEAL Team 4, earned my trident, got my trident, which is the official, badge thing you wear on your chest, insignia, after you become a team guy SEAL. But I'm brand new. And something happened. Okay, so I'm an 01. That's my rank, 01. There's 01 through 06 are the normal ranks, and you have like admirals and generals after that. So 01 and 02, they're a dime a dozen. 03s, there's less than 04s and 05s. You start to get, even less, and 06 is quite high. I was an 01. He was an 05. He'd been in like 20 years. He's the commanding officer of SEAL Team 4 and had earned that position. And I was just a knucklehead new guy that just made it through training. I was attached to a certain platoon just to learn, get my eyes open. And something happened, which no need to go into it here. Something happened. Some folks got killed. People had to go to different places of the world and handle some stuff. I had to go down to someplace in South America and join this platoon that was already doing stuff down there, training some folks, and just basically be in the leadership position down there while the head shed, the leadership, took care of something else since they had this fatality. I didn't know what I was doing. It was just a terrible situation, bad situation. I was thrown into something that, quite frankly, I wasn't ready for, but there weren't a lot of options given the logistics of the situation. So I had to go down and join this platoon, even though I really didn't have any real-world experience doing anything. And it just, bang, I was just in the deep end of the pool, in the frying pan right away, in over my head. And story for another time, story for when we're not on the internet or something. Something went wrong. Something went wrong down there, and I made a mistake, and I wasn't sure how to handle it because I didn't have any experience, quite frankly. I was learning every day that was going by, and I did something wrong, a decision, and I should have informed some people of what happened, of what I did incorrectly down there. But I did not inform anybody because I thought it would just go away, right? I mean, it happened halfway around the world. It's going to go away. That was another lesson learned in my life. So this eventually, ends. Things happen. The leadership is over somewhere else, and they're taking care of what happened. With the fatality, going through that whole process. I'm down there with the remainder of the platoon down in South America, just making sure that the training continues along. And then it all ends. The head shed rejoins their platoon. I head back to Virginia to SEAL Team 4, and I just going about my life as a new guy, just doing what I'm supposed to do every day. Month goes by, don't hear anything about it. So I figure, great, never heard anything about it ever again, just like I thought. A couple months go by, it's gone, it's forgotten about. About 3 months later, long enough that it was not even a concern in my mind anymore that this would ever rear its head. Still a brand new guy. I've got no street cred at SEAL Team 4. I'm a new guy. Over the 1MC, which is like a PA system, a loudspeaker system in the team, I hear, Ensign Sherwood, please report to the commanding officer's office. And I'm like, that's peculiar. I wonder what the CO wants to see me for. But I don't know. Hey, whatever. So I wander down there. I wander into the commanding officer's office, Pete's office, who's in 05, and here's a little background and context. So, Pete's an 05, very high-ranking, individual, been in about 20 years. He's the commanding officer of SEAL Team 4. You've got some other SEAL teams on the East Coast as well. All of those East Coast SEAL teams answer to this one individual who's a rank higher than them, and he's called a Commodore. So all the East Coast commanding officers answer to the Commodore. He's their boss. Well, there had been a meeting with all the East Coast commanding officers of all the various SEAL teams with the Commodore. The Commodore had found out what happened down in South America when I was there, and it wasn't good. So the Commodore knew about it, but my commanding officer did not. So point being, because I didn't say anything, I did not arm my commanding officer with information. My commanding officer walked into this meeting and learned for the first time from his boss and in front of his peers that something dumb happened at his SEAL team, and he didn't even know about it. So long story short, I made my commanding officer look like an idiot and look like a horse's ass in front of his peers and in front of his boss. And it's tough for me to explain to you how bad that is without actually having lived it. It's a very, very bad, hot situation. So the Commodore, who's my boss's boss, the commanding officer's boss, just rips him a new one in perfect military fashion. I mean, just rips him apart for not knowing this. not knowing what happened at his own command, under his watch. And he does it in front of the other commanding officers. So it's not a good situation. And basically that happened because of me, because I did not inform the chain of command what happened downrange. So, Pete experiences this Commodore removing chunks of his butt in front of everybody else. Jen, who's in the military currently, she can just feel it, right? Not a good situation. So now, here I am, 3 months later, walking into the commanding officer's office, Pete's office. Of course, I did not call him Pete at that time. Pete's office, having no idea what just happened to him, and that he knows what happened. And so I walk in, he's like, "Pat, have a seat." And I was like, you got it, Skipper, roger that. Sit down. He then proceeds to tell me what just happened to him. The meeting that he was in, what he learned, and what was said to him and done to him in front of his peers. And I'm just bracing in my chair. And I'm like, oh my good, I can't believe how bad this is about to be. As a brand new guy with no street cred, no nothing, I made the commanding officer look like an idiot. And I'm thinking through my head, what's going to happen? Is this going to be some sort of, obviously something's going in my record. What sort of discipline will be taken? Will it be as extreme as I'm going to lose my trident, lose my bird, and be kicked out to the fleet? I just have no clue. My mind's racing. So, the build-up is for a reason. Pete laid out that situation to me, and as I'm bracing for impact, the impact never came. It never came. He, instead of ripping me a new one, he used it as a 100% learning experience. He apologized to me, if you can believe that. He said, "You should have never been put in that position downrange. You didn't have the experience yet to be thrown into such a bizarre and dynamic situation and know how to handle it. And we gave you no support network in any way, shape, or form. And that wasn't fair or appropriate for us to do to you." And so he basically said that it was his fault instead of mine. What happened downrange, he's like, that was my fault as the leader of the command because I put you into that position. And I'm taking it on that one. He never raised his voice. He never swore at me. He never blamed me. We sat in his office for about 90 minutes and just talked through all kinds of leadership situations, through how you handle things. He told me one or two situations that happened to him when he was a young junior officer that he was not in any way, shape, or form ready for, and totally caught him off guard, and mistakes that he had made and what he learned from those mistakes moving forward and how they completely changed him from that point. And he basically said, look, one of the things you also have to realize on top of all the other great conversations we have, and this has stuck with me to this day, is that if something happens, bad news, right? Whatever it is, didn't go right, bad news. Bad news, it's going to come out, right? There's that old saying that two people can keep a secret if one of them's dead. If more than one person knows something, let alone if 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 do, it's going to come out. People talk, people chat. It may take 6 days, it may take 6 months, it may take 6 years. It will come out. So if something happens, bad news, whatever that is, bad news does not get better with time. Period. So after it happens, whatever it is, you need to inform people, and you need to inform them as quick as you can, because bad news does not get better with time. And it's always better to pay now than it is to pay later. And the sooner you tell somebody, they can get ahead of it, get on top of it, and try to help you out and correct that course as much as possible. But he's like, I am not holding this against you. You have a 100% clean slate as far as I'm concerned walking out of this office. I apologize for putting you in that position, and I hope that moving forward, you use everything that has happened to shape and mold and make you a better leader, and then pass that forward to other people as well. He was one of those individuals that realized there is no learning without mistakes. There's not. And some of those mistakes are smaller or bigger than others, depending upon what your job happens to be. And if you're working with guns and explosives and jumping out of planes and doing stuff at night and in other countries, there's, even small mistakes are relatively big mistakes, and he was phenomenal. So without a shadow of a doubt, and I was with him for about 4 years, and his guidance and wisdom was just phenomenal. So he probably had one of the largest impacts on me for leadership and just how to conduct business. So anyway, he's fantastic. I wish I was still in contact with him. So that's that. And anybody who's been in the military, or just you could take that example and apply it to a civilian corporation. That story that I laid out, it's rare, right, for somebody to be in his position that just got his butt chewed and whatever, to not take it out on the subordinate in any way, shape, or form, to 100% and personally just use it as a learning experience. It's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. So anyway, yeah, that was Pete. Okay, so let's see. That covered that one. So that was Ethan's question. And what do we have next? Okay, we have some 25s. 25. We got a 16 and another 25. Okay, so we've got two 25s. So we're going to take one of those. And this one relates to coffee, which I'm drinking right now. It's more of a fun one, so we'll take it real quick. From Sean, one of the staples throughout many of your videos is your famous coffee mug, which I assume is literally this one I've got right here. I'm a coffee enthusiast myself, so I've got to ask, what's your go-to coffee, morning and afternoon? So yes, this is my go-to coffee mug for sure, and it's relatively small. If you're listening to this one day as a podcast, you won't be able to see it, but if you're in the video, by American standards, which everything's like 20 ounces and more, this is a small coffee cup, but I like a smaller coffee cup. I have about 2 cups a day, and I don't know a lot about coffee. I just like a dark roast, which I've been told by people that know coffee, that's not a sophisticated coffee to like. Apparently dark coffee can be burnt or something like that, so maybe I like burnt coffee, but I like dark coffee, and I'm also not particularly concerned with the caffeine, which I know a lot of people find shocking. I just like the taste, and I like the warmth, and I like the ritual, and I like sipping it. The caffeine, I could take it or leave it. And yeah, 2 cups a day. I cannot drink anything with caffeine past noon. If I do, I will not sleep. So I wish that I could have coffee in the afternoon or evening. It sounds so nice to wrap up the day, but I can't do it. So I'm a morning coffee guy, and that's that. And it's delicious, and I like it hot. That's why I can't do just a regular mug. I have to have the cover on my little thing here to keep it just piping hot. All right, the other 25. Where are we? From Dan. Old dogs and new tricks. Many in this group are north of 35 and technically masters in CrossFit terms. I understand. I'm going to be 45 in August. Let's see. Many of us are a decade or more older than that. What should our expectation be of learning new skill-based movements such as a double under, muscle up, handstand walk, snatch, etc., assuming no gymnastics or Olympic lifting background, and we are relatively in sound health? Can these new skills be learned? Would it be worth it? Or should we reset our expectations as older athletes? Excellent question. So, short answer, should old dogs learn new tricks? Yes. Short answer is yes. There's a couple asterisks to that. There's some nuance there. First is not all old dogs are the same. Not all 35-year-olds are the same, not all 45s, not all 55s, not all 65s. Based upon whatever you have or have not done to your body, you could be in good joint health with a decent range of motion. You could be tight as a drum. You could be nursing a few injuries. You know, whatever it happens to be. So it's not a clean slate across all people. But, and this is again the wonders of scaling. So all those movements that you just mentioned are great. You mentioned double unders, muscle-ups, handstand walking, snatching. Now, there could be a bunch more. But all those ones that you just mentioned are, relatively speaking, high with regards to a technical capacity, and they require the coordination, accuracy, agility, and balance, that neurological component of training. You have to engage your brain and get your central nervous system to do what you want to do. You can't just disengage your brain, not pay attention to technique, and excel at those movements. And that's a big part of functional movements, is that neurological component, the coordination, accuracy, agility, and balance, which is equally as important as the organic components in developing power and speed. So all of those movements that you just mentioned and more, yes, in general, they can be pursued and learned. However, that's also the wonders of scaling and educating yourself on scaling and modifying. So let's say, for example, you pursue those movements that you just mentioned, but you never get them. Okay, so I'm painting a grim picture here. You're going to try every day, but you're never, ever going to get a ring muscle up. Okay, you're never going to walk on your hands. There's still value there, because in your pursuit of the ring muscle up, you've decided, you know what, I'm not just going to do pull-ups on a static bar that doesn't move. Now I'm going through some progressions, I'm doing some low ring muscle-ups, I've got a false grip, I'm pulling these rings to my chest, using all these stabilizer muscles to keep my elbows in tight to my body as I rotate my arms around, using a bit of leg to do a ring dip here. You're still engaging your mind, moving through a fantastic range of motion, and developing, in just the pursuit of the muscle up, with a low ring muscle up, incredible, useful, functional strength that will benefit all of your other movements, will benefit your daily life, will help keep you happy, healthy, and fit, even if you never get a ring muscle up with your feet off the ground. There's still value, there's still benefit there through the roof. So appropriately scaling and modifying these technically challenging movements can do one of two things. A, can one day lead to you getting the movement, which is great. Or number two, is going to hit you with some variance and some development that will still benefit everything. So fantastic. And the same thing could be said on handstand walking. You could go the rest of your life without the need to handstand walk, right? The need. But there's so much potential benefit and development there that translates to other movements that the pursuit of the handstand walk is worth it. Even if the handstand walk never materializes, the balance which will be developed, the coordination, the improvement in your overhead strength is just going to be top notch. And that has benefit, even if you never actually wind up walking on your hands. You know, there's a great handstand walk progression, and on top of many other progressions, available to you through Beyond the Whiteboard as part of your subscription, and you should absolutely use those. And even if it never manifests in the handstand walk, you're going to benefit from it. Same deal with the barbell snatch. Now, most people could barbell snatch for a very long time in life, but the caveat to that is, depending upon the loading, you can barbell snatch a PVC pipe, right? And most people could do that. And even with a PVC pipe, you can't just disconnect your brain. You're trying to think about the sequencing of, are my hips and shoulders rising at the same rate? Is my hip going too fast? What am I doing with my knees? Is my second pull where it needs to be? I'm going to go back down here. I'm going to punch this barbell up. You're going from on the ground to below parallel to overhead. huge benefit just moving your body through that range of motion and trying to think about the right sequence to do it, whether it's a PVC pipe or just an empty barbell. It doesn't have to be some sort of maximal load, but even at light and moderate loading, movements which are technically complicated and require you to engage your brain are just fantastic. So yes, I would encourage people to pursue those in a way that is intelligent and not overreaching, with regards to where they are in life, their fitness, their flexibility, and all that good stuff. So that would be my answer to that. I guess I'm an old dog now too, right? 45 in August. Where are we next? That was 25. What other question has been upvoted? We've got a 16 here. Can anyone beat a 16? We've got an 18. We've got two 18s. Oh, we have a 19. Okay, so we're going to take the 19. 19 from Jeremy. No, I'm sorry. The 18 is from Jeremy. The 19 is from Tim. We did the 10 by 100 meter sprints earlier this week and undoubtedly felt like we had been hit by a truck afterwards. True statement. What is it about the sprint/interval type workouts that creates such an expanded level of capacity that we all benefit from? Wonderful question. In short answer, what is it about them that is so devastating and so wonderful, all wrapped into one, is just explosive power. That's probably the best way that I can say it, explosive power. It's the same reason that we power clean. It's the same reason that we deadlift or squat or snatch or clean and jerk. Explosive power is a great thing to have as an athlete, and sprints develop it equally, if not better, than a lot of those other things that I just mentioned. And also, if you notice what you're lit up from when you sprint, just posterior chain, right? Hamstrings, glutes, and then your midline, your abdominals are sore just from the midline stabilization required to run at a maximal effort. How amazing is that? That you are stressing the system in your body so much, and so much power and speed are coming out of your legs and being transmitted to the earth, that the amount of stabilization required to keep your upper body rigid as appropriate for the sprints, leaves you with sore abs. No sit-ups, no L-sits, no barbell, just from sprinting. It's absolutely fantastic. So we've got explosive power and speed, posterior chain development, that's where the money is, posterior chain, and midline stabilization. It's fantastic. And you also have some benefit there, which is a bigger conversation of anaerobic versus aerobic training. So, quite simply, anaerobic can be done without the need to constantly be sustained by oxygen. It's not sustainable for a long period of time. It's short duration, high intensity. Anaerobic is longer, more sustainable, and takes place, in more aerobic capacity. In speaking with Chris Henshaw, who's a very well-known, engine endurance, long-distance runner most of his life, and has helped many a CrossFitter improve their running, conversations that I've had with him, which most people want to get better at their longer running, right? Their 5K times, so on and so forth. I asked him one time, hey, if people do want to get better at their 5K, for example, what are you recommending? And I expected him to say, your 400-meter repeats, your 800-meter repeats, your mile repeats, and while he said those are absolutely critically important to improving your 5K time, he's like, people need to run shorter, and they need to run shorter more often. He's like, I'm talking 100-meter dashes, and even below that, like 50s. So even somebody in the long-distance world understands that the benefit of sprinting short and fast not only benefits that explosive power, posterior chain development, and midline stabilization, but it has translation over to running longer distances at a slower pace. But the opposite is not true. So you can work your hundreds and have a reasonable expectation that it will benefit your 5K. But you can't just solely work your 5K or 10K and expect to see a noticeable improvement in your 100-meter dash times. So it works one way, but it doesn't work the other way. And since we get all of the benefits that I previously mentioned, and we get transference to other longer time domains, the 100s are just fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And here's the other thing, just speaking about variance. That we do all this different stuff, but maximal sprinting doesn't really happen without an intent focus to do it. Yeah, we run in workouts. You're going to do Helen. You've got a 400-meter run in there. But most of those, okay, maybe they're faster than a jog, but they're nowhere near maximal. You're still running in a multi-round workout at a pace that's somewhat ratcheted back, because you know when you run back to the pull-up bar or the barbell or the kettlebell, you've got some more work to do. So you're not going to just empty the tank on the run, because then you just crash and burn. So shy of and even on a 400-meter repeat day, an 800-meter repeat day, on those days, yes, you're running faster than you would in a workout, but even on a 400-meter repeat or an 800-meter repeat, you're not running at a maximal sprint pace. So there's very few times, unless you schedule it in, that you're going to actually press the accelerator all the way down to the floor. And so to neglect that one area would be a hole that we don't want to have. And it's just one of those things where most of us live a very comfortable, wonderful life where you don't have to sprint for your life away from the enemy or a bear or something like that. So you could go, maybe, the rest of your life and never maximally sprint. You go out for a jog, you do that stuff, but there's rarely a need to maximally sprint. And I remember I was having a chat with my father years ago, which I got a kick out of, and I asked him, I said, look, and he doesn't work out. I said, when's the last time, and he's in his 70s now, I think he was in his mid-60s when we had the conversation. I said, when's the last time that you ran? And I don't, not jog, and I don't even need to say maximal sprint, but you broke into some sort of a pace that was above a jog. When's the last time you did that? And he thought for a second. He went, probably Vietnam. That was the man's response, Vietnam. So my point being, unless you make yourself do it, you could potentially live the rest of your life and never sprint. And so, we're going to sprint. Okay, that was that. Okay, we've got, is it 218 questions here? 2, okay. From Jeremy, here we go. Going down a rabbit hole. I think this is a nutrition question. Although your ice cream posts get a ton of likes, I know you continue to stress and follow the CrossFit approach to nutrition. Could you share a bit more about your specific approach? Do you count macros or just follow general guidelines, and possibly a sample day of eating? Great question. So yes, I'm a human. Sugar tastes good. Treats taste good. But I have to exert some level of discipline and conduct myself the overwhelming majority of the time in a way that will ideally be indicative of a long, healthy life that I can enjoy with my children, and trying to avoid chronic disease. And so, again, I have to exert some discipline. I did the zone diet, classic zone diet, for years, and quite strict. Potentially, maybe 5 to 7 years I did the zone diet, like hardcore. And it works. I mean, because it forces you to pay attention to what you're eating and how much you're eating. And if you do that, and you're aware of what good choices and bad choices are, I mean, it just works. It's measurable, observable, and repeatable. And you can tweak it or modify it a bit to find where just you hum as an athlete, and then you can just stay there. So there's something powerful there. And even though I don't weigh and measure every day now for my life, what doing that for 5 to 7 years did is gave me a really good idea of what an appropriate amount of food is and what an inappropriate amount of food is, and portion control, and how much of what should be on my plate, and how much protein is appropriate, and fat, and there's this much carbohydrates in an apple or grapes or spinach or broccoli, or it's a slice of bread, is basically the equivalent to how much fruit. And it was very useful, incredibly, incredibly useful, and it serves me well to this day. These days, how I eat, I don't weigh and measure, but there's a caveat there. I do break out my scale almost every day, and I'll tell you why. But in general, how I eat now is I just try to eat real food. And that may sound simplistic, and I'll define it. Just like we used to say at the level 1, real food is kind of like we say at CrossFit, right? Meats and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, no sugar. It's no refined sugar. So I try to do most of that. I eat meats, vegetables, and fruit. I eat more fruit than vegetables. I could certainly go for more vegetables in my life. That's the truth. But it's like I tell my kids and other people about, and I don't get crazy with nutrition right now about my kids because I don't want to give them food issues for life. But we have conversations because they see me and their mom eat, and they ask questions, and I answer the questions. And I tell them that a really simple way to figure out whether food is real or not, this might be an oversimplification, but it has value, is real food does not have ingredients. If you flip over something and there's an ingredients list, there's a good chance it's not real food. An apple is just an apple. A banana is just a banana. Spinach is just spinach. Broccoli is just broccoli. Fill in the blank. An avocado is just an avocado. Salmon's just salmon. Chicken's just chicken. Beef is just beef. That's that. And if you look at something and you flip over the box and there's a list of 17 ingredients on there, half of which you can't pronounce, there's a really good chance that what you're eating is not real food, it's processed food. So I just try to live most of my life eating real food, and things go very well. And what I usually do is for lunch is I will break out the food scale if I'm having chicken or beef or something like that, and I'll weigh out the amount of meat that I'm having, because I want to make sure that I am getting enough protein. But a typical breakfast for me is 4 scrambled eggs, 3 pieces of bacon, and then a bowl of fruit. Lunch is some sort of meat, and then I usually have an apple with it. And if the meat, I may have some avocado with that. I may have some all-natural peanut butter, and then dinner is whatever the dinner for the household is, and that goes well. And that's the overwhelming majority of how I eat. And I don't really drink anything other than coffee and water. And for me, life's good. Works quite well. All right, let's see. All right, that was 9:30. It's 9:43 right now. And I do have a Zoom call coming up for work, so I'm going to have to bow out at this point in time. I know there's 1 or 2 questions that got decent upvoting, but I didn't have a chance to get to, so please ask them again. And I'll touch on this real quick because it's a short one. Chris Robinson, you asked about the hip and back extension. There's 3 different movements, okay? There's the hip extension, there's the back extension, and then there's a movement which is called the hip and back extension. And so when we say to do, for example, 10 hip and back extensions in the warm-up, it's not that we're saying you should do 10 hip extensions and 10 back extensions. There's one movement called the hip and back extension, and that's the one that we're talking about. And if you go to, we include a video of that movement on the private track, and it's straight off the CrossFit HQ YouTube channel. It's a wonderful video, so go ahead and check that out. All right, enjoy the rest of your rest day, everybody, and we will do this again next Thursday.